Ladies and gentlemen, today Radio FM79 talks about the reasons why no other country dares to confront the U.S. Navy. American aircraft carriers have participated in nearly every military conflict since the world's first super aircraft carrier, USS Forrestal, entered service in the 1950s. Despite this, not a single American aircraft carrier has ever been attacked by an adversary. This is partly because supercarriers are difficult to target, but also due to the symbolic power of these giant ships. Since the 1950s, supercarriers have been the clearest representation of America's military strength and maritime dominance. The last time a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier was sunk was during World War II, where 12 were lost, the final one being the USS Bismarck Sea, which was sunk by Japanese kamikaze pilots in February 1945. However, today it is recognized that due to their massive size, U.S. aircraft carriers could potentially become targets for increasingly modern and accurate anti-ship weapons. But why has no country dared to attack them? What has America done to instill such fear? According to experts, the first reason is the speed and flexibility of U.S. carriers. The Nimitz, Ford, and GeraldRFordClass aircraft carriers are the largest warships ever built by the U.S. For example, the Nimitz-class carriers are 333 meters long, with a displacement ranging from 100,000 to 106,000 tons. Their hundreds of watertight compartments and thick steel hulls make them nearly impervious to conventional torpedoes and mines. These colossal machines are powered by two Westinghouse A4W nuclear reactors, providing energy for 4 steam turbines driving 4 propellers, delivering a total of 260,000 horsepower. The reactors allow the ship to operate for 20 to 25 years without refueling. Despite their size, Nimitz-class carriers are surprisingly maneuverable, capable of reaching speeds of up to 30 knots, making it hard for slower submarines to track them. Within 30 minutes of detecting an enemy, the operational range of the carrier expands to 700 square miles, and after 90 minutes, it extends to 6,000 square miles. The second reason is the formidable defense systems surrounding American carriers. You will never find a carrier sailing alone. Instead, they operate as part of a carrier strike group, CSG. A CSG is a maritime combat group centered around an aircraft carrier, coordinating and commanding operations. The U.S. Navy currently operates 10 Nimitz-class supercarriers, each supporting a CSG. A typical CSG includes 1 aircraft carrier, 2 to 3 Ticonderoga-class cruisers, 3 to 4 Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers, 1 to 2 nuclear attack submarines, and 1 to 2 logistics ships. This formation may vary based on the mission, but the carrier remains the heart of the group. The carrier itself carries ship-based fighters, electronic warfare aircraft, early warning aircraft, and helicopters. The F/A-18EF Super Hornet fighter is the primary fighter jet, handling attack missions on enemy bases, as well as defending the carrier and its group. The Ticonderoga-class cruisers, equipped with the advanced Aegis combat system, provide air defense, anti-submarine warfare, and anti-ship capabilities, ensuring no enemy surface vessels, submarines, or aircraft can approach the CSG. In addition to defense, Ticonderoga-class cruisers can launch Tomahawk missiles to strike targets deep inland, further showcasing their versatility and power. It is equipped with up to 122 Mach 41 vertical launch tubes, capable of carrying a variety of missile types. Additionally, with the presence of the Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer in the aircraft carrier battle group, it fulfills anti-aircraft, anti-ship, and anti-submarine roles. These destroyers are armed with the most advanced weaponry in the U.S. Navy, designed to neutralize any threats to the battle group. The Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer features 90 to 96 Mach 41 vertical launch tubes, which can be used for launching Tomahawk missiles for land attacks, as well as providing ballistic missile defense. Together with the Ticonderoga-class cruiser, they form an integrated air, surface, and underwater defense network, a powerful combination that shields the aircraft carrier battle group from all threats. As for the Los Angeles or Virginia-class nuclear attack submarines, their role is focused on underwater reconnaissance and defense. These submarines often operate ahead of the group, scouting and warning the battle group about the presence of enemy surface ships and submarines. In high-risk missions, one submarine will lead the formation, while another patrols at the rear. Logistics ships are vital to the group, ensuring that the aircraft carrier has ample aviation fuel and that escort ships are supplied with diesel. These ships typically operate at the rear of the formation and, after transferring all their fuel, return to base to be replaced by another ship. This ensures that the battle group remains operational without interruption. These layered defenses and logistics support tactics help maximize the survivability of U.S. aircraft carriers. Although protected by these multi-layered shields, operating close to potential adversaries still presents risks. Therefore, careful strategies are implemented to ensure the carrier can launch attacks as planned. For instance, an aircraft carrier cannot operate effectively in areas with dense minefields unless these are thoroughly cleared. This means that U.S. carriers prefer to operate in open oceans rather than confined waters, where enemy warships could blend in with commercial vessels. In the vast expanses of the open sea, aircraft carriers maintain constant movement, making it difficult for adversaries to detect and track them. Finally, the adoption of cutting-edge technologies is another reason why U.S. aircraft carriers have not been successfully attacked. To mitigate threats, Washington has heavily invested in both defensive and offensive technologies. One of the most significant advances in recent years has been the integration of modern systems, allowing sensors and weapon systems to operate at peak efficiency. One such advancement is the Comprehensive Fire Control and Air Defense System, which connects all available combat systems into a highly responsive defensive network. This makes it incredibly difficult for an enemy to breach the defense perimeter. These robust defenses have kept U.S. aircraft carriers safe, and as a result, very few nations are capable of posing a credible threat to these valuable assets. With their near unlimited range and flexibility, thanks to nuclear propulsion, aircraft carriers allow the United States to project power and protect its interests anywhere in the world. This reality is expected to hold true for decades to come, as the U.S. Navy continues to invest in new military technologies. As such, the likelihood of an adversary sinking one of these floating fortresses without resorting to nuclear weapons is almost non-existent. So what would happen if a country had the audacity to launch a full-scale attack on the U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier group during a conflict? How would the U.S. react, and what actions would it take? Undoubtedly, it would create a crisis so severe that it could potentially lead to a third world war. Of course, a sudden attack by a heavily armed adversary might initially succeed, but this would have enormous consequences, not only militarily, but politically as well. American elites and public opinion would demand harsh and severe responses, likely including military retaliation and economic sanctions. The most devastating scenario would be an attack by a non-state actor, resulting in massive casualties and the destruction of the carrier, fueling national outrage. Even though aircraft carriers are formidable war machines, they are not invincible. Since World War II, most global conflicts have been on a smaller scale, and attacking an aircraft carrier has rarely been a wise choice. Russia and China have developed missiles specifically designed to destroy aircraft carriers, and their destructive power is significant. However, neither of these nations has ever attempted to use these weapons against a U.S. aircraft carrier. Attacking such a vessel would not only have military repercussions, but also political ones. Another key reason for hesitation is uncertainty over how many missiles it would actually take to sink a U.S. aircraft carrier. In theory, one well-placed missile might be enough, but reality is much more complicated. Sinking a steel ship over 300 meters long is no easy task. In 2005, the U.S. Navy conducted an experiment to see how resistant an aircraft carrier would be to sinking. The test targeted the retired aircraft carrier USS America. The ship was subjected to continuous attacks both above and below the water. After nearly 4 weeks, the Navy only managed to sink the stern. The rest of the ship remained afloat until the Pentagon decided to completely scuttle it. This shows that American aircraft carriers are designed to remain afloat even after sustaining heavy damage. So what are the chances that a missile strike could actually sink a carrier? It's probably harder than winning the lottery. And if you decide to target an aircraft carrier, you must consider the massive human cost. Take the USS Nimitz, for example. It carries around 6,000 sailors and naval personnel, making it a floating American treasure. In just one strike, American casualties could exceed those of the entire Iraq War. That's an unimaginable number. When a flagship like an aircraft carrier is sunk, nearly all sailors aboard could lose their lives. For example, in 1941, the British warship HMS Hood was sunk by a German battleship, resulting in the deaths of 1,415 out of 1,418 crew members. Only 3 survived. Any country considering an attack on a U.S. aircraft carrier must seriously weigh these consequences. In an emergency, the U.S. can mobilize up to 10 aircraft carriers from various parts of the world to the conflict zone. Sinking just one carrier would reduce the fleet's strength by only 10%. According to experts, sinking a U.S. carrier is the fastest way to escalate a small conflict into a full-scale war, and very few nations today are prepared to face the U.S. in such a war. It can be said that if an adversary were to attack a U.S. aircraft carrier, it would not be a mistake, but a deliberate strategic decision beyond the authority of the ship's commanders. Any enemy that attacks a U.S. aircraft carrier must carefully consider their next steps. Reflecting on the U.S. response to the horrific terrorist attack of September 2001, we can see that Washington is willing to fight with everything it has, deploying all its remaining military assets, including its surviving aircraft carriers, to respond to such an attack. There are 2 crucial questions anyone who thinks they can take down one of these steel giants must ask themselves. Can you really do it? And if you can, is it worth the price you'll pay afterward? If we can answer these 2 questions, then we've solved the puzzle presented in today's video. Thus, the journey to explore the possibility of sinking U.S. aircraft carriers comes to an end. Please share your thoughts on this topic in the comments below so we can discuss it further. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the interesting content from Radio FM79. Radio wishes you a great weekend with your family.